Okay, hi everyone. My name is Sarah Giragosian, and I'm a wildlife rehabber and a volunteer for Whispering Willow Wild Care, which is directed by Joyce Perry. I'm here with my friend and fellow rehabber, Xen Hayes, who has been doing wildlife rehab for quite a time now. And she's going to tell you about her work with one of her Redtailed Hawks. Um, a little bit about Xen. She has a degree in wildlife biology, and she's been volunteering for Joyce at Whispering Willow for 5.5 years. And she's had her own rehab license for 3 years, as well as her education license. She educates the public about injured wildlife for 2 years. So, hi Xen, do you want to tell us a little bit about your hawk that's also named Xen?
Sure. So Xen, otherwise known as Little Xen, came in about 4.5 years ago. She had had a head-on with a truck. Unfortunately, somebody behind the truck actually saw it happening and pulled over and got her help. So she was brought right to the vet. The vet called us because we do specialize in birds of prey. And she had a big gash on her forehead. She was pretty out of it. Um, she was on painkillers for couple of weeks, antibiotics because of the gash. But after that, we thought she was going to be releasable. You know, she could see fine. She was interacting with us. There's nothing wrong with her shoulders or her wings. But took us a little time to figure out what was wrong. But apparently, she has neurological damage from the collision. And this damage seems to prevent her from remembering how to fly. Um, In her aviary, she actually has ladders that she climbs to get from perch to perch, or she'll hop from perch to perch, but she can't fly to a perch that's further away. The only time she seems to want to fly is if something scares her or she's trying to get away from me when I'm trying to catch her. But even then, she doesn't make it very far.
It's amazing how resilient she is. When I hear that story, I'm just amazed that she survived that. Um,
Yeah, she got really lucky that somebody was able to get her help right away.
yeah. Um, so I have a few questions that I've gathered from friends and colleagues. So I'm just going to ask you a little bit about red tails. First, one of my friends wanted to know where you're most likely to see red tails, and also how you distinguish them from other hawks.
Yeah, well, in terms of North America, you can find them almost anywhere. You can find them right up into almost the Arctic Circle, not quite that far, but close. Alaska, northern Canada, throughout the entire United States, with the exception of Hawaii, Mexico, all the way down into some of Central America. So you can find them anywhere. In terms of the habitat, they like open spaces. They're not forest birds. But in terms of open spaces, they're not picky. You can find them in deserts, grasslands, prairies. They love farms, which I'm sure a lot of farmers know because they actually will follow their tractors. You can find them on the sides of roads. I know a lot of people see them on highways. You're driving up a throughway or something, and the red-tailed hawks are either circling above or they're on trees nearby. They have excellent eyesight. So the reason they do this is because they'll just sit up there or they're flying around, and those clear spaces that they like allow them to see their prey below them. Uh,
How can you distinguish a red tail from other hawks? Say if you're riding on the highway and you see a hawk in the distance.
well, the primary reason or way to tell them apart is what they're known for, their red tail. So she's got this classic tail. It's not like a red, it's more of like a brickish red. But, if they're flying around and you get that sun that hits it, you can usually see it pretty well. And that's their main indicator. But they don't get that red tail until they turn two. Up until they turn two, it's dark brown like her wing here. The other thing is this band right here, this belly band she's got. They all have that. It varies somewhat. Some of them are a little thicker, some of them are a little thinner, but they all have that belly band, and red-tailed hawks are very well known for that.
Yeah, I like the belly bands. Um, so another question that one of my friends had was, how can they be lured to his area because he wants to bird watch? Is there any way he can lure them to his yard?
Well, it's not super easy to lure a red tail because they're not like seed birds that would go to a feeder, or you can't really put up a nest box for them. If you have a larger yard and you have a lot of mammals in your yard, because they do primarily eat small mammals, rodents, squirrels, rabbits, they're more likely to come to your yard then. They will come to a bird feeder uh, to snack on the birds that are eating from your feeder. But you're more likely to get other hawks than the red tails. They will eat birds, but it's not their primary source. So I really don't think that you can lure them too much other than to have a wildlife friendly yard. And if you do, then they're more likely to stop by.
And a wildlife friendly yard. I mean, beyond space, wouldn't that also mean things like um, maybe not raking your leaves so often, allowing there to be cover for small mammals, for rodents?
Yeah, like a water source,
Yeah.
native plants,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And houses and stuff like bird houses and nesting areas for the other animals that the red tail might prey on.
That's great. Um, Another question from a friend: what is it like to rehabilitate red-tailed hawks?
Well, it varies on the bird. Because of Xen's head injury, she was very docile when she came in. She still is. So she was pretty easy. We were able to get meds in her pretty easily. She wouldn't eat when she first came in, but she didn't put up much of a fight when we fed her, so she was easy. But other red-tailed hawks, not so much. I rehabbed one last year, a Kaya. She's crazy. She is crazy. She wanted to stab me so much. So, I mean, that's one of the things you really have to be careful about when you're rehabbing, especially. It doesn't even matter how big the bird is, but obviously, when there's this size, it can cause more damage. You've got to control their feet because they will go after you. You've got to keep an eye on their beak. You don't want to get bit while you're trying to do it, but if they come in for rehabbing, you could need to bandage their wing. You might need to give them medication, which is usually orally. You might have to force feed them. So you would have to pry open their beak and be very, you can choke them if you don't know where to put the food in the liquid, so you have to be careful. But pry that beak open, get whatever in there, so you've got to be careful about that. They will probably fight you and try to bite you, and good times.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks then. Um, what another question, what would you recommend to someone who finds an injured bird or any kind of injured wildlife in their yard, say, or in a park? What steps can they take?
Well, it depends on what the issue is. For example, if you just see a big bird that looks okay, but it's just sitting on the ground and you're like, okay, that's weird, um, keep an eye on it. It doesn't necessarily need help. Sometimes they eat so much that they can't really get off the ground well, and it takes them a little digestion first. Other times, especially with babies, they might be on the ground, but their parents are nearby and they're keeping an eye on them and they're fine. So if it's something like that, just watch it. But if it's definitely injured, or for example, you know the mother was hit by a car or something, something like that, the first thing you'd want to do is make sure the bird is safe. Like if you have cats or dogs around, bring them inside. If it's in a place where you can't control that, you might want to bring the injured animal inside. You can do that by using some heavy gloves, a towel or a blanket to throw over them to make them easier to handle, then bring them in. Should put them into a box. Darkness especially with hawks. It chills them out. They're less likely to hurt themselves. Um, Obviously, make sure it's not airtight, but put them somewhere safe in a dark, quiet spot. Don't feed them or water them. You might be able to give them a little dish of water depending on what the animal is, but don't try to force feed them or give it to them orally. You could choke them, you could stress them out, you could be giving them the wrong food if you don't exactly know what kind of animal it is or if you're not familiar with them. And then the next step would be, well, how do you get it help? If you know a rehabber, obviously reach out to them. If you don't, you could reach out to a vet. They might not know a rehabber, but they might know a vet that works with them, or they might know a vet that handles that type of animal that can take care of it and then try to find it help. You could Google wildlife rehabilitators in your area. New York State has a wildlife rehabber association that has a list of many of us on there. You could look it up that way. And also, at least in New York's case, New York State Department of Conservation has a list of wildlife rehabilitators on their website as well.
That's great information, Zen. Thank you so much. And it looks like Zen is relaxing, just chilling out
Yeah, she's
on
being
this
good
nice
today.
day. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
No, thank you.